In honor of Indonesian Heroes Day, we're going to be reacting to the Bung Tomo speech, or the Freedom or Die speech. Link to the original videos down in the description below. If you like the commentary and discussions we have here on this channel, consider subscribing. And we have a playlist to all my other Indonesian reaction videos in the description. Without further ado, let's get into it. Dang, that's so loud. That's so loud. We're actually learning about this right now, currently, in an Indonesian War for Independence series. Japan's defeat to the Allies on August 14, 1945, impacted the power vacuum in Indonesia. This opportunity was used by the Indonesian people to declare their independence on August 17th, 1945. Quibble to disarm the Japanese army, apparently the arrival of the Dutch wanted to return to Indonesia by bringing British troops to come to Surabaya. The British deployed 5,000 troops from the 49th and the 24,000 troops from the 5th Division departed from Malaysia to Surabaya. This was the largest deployment of British military forces since the end of World War II, and it was almost immediate. Again, we have a whole series on this as well. Indonesian people in Surabaya simultaneously refused and against the arrival of the British and the Dutch soldiers by mobilizing more than 130,000 troops. 100,000 of those were more than likely the Dutch soldiers. And to maintain the independence of the Republic of Indonesia, the heroic battle between the Indonesian people against the British Army was inevitable. Freedom or death.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Merdeka! Saudara-saudara, rakyat jelata.
Hold on, let me move my camera.
Di seluruh Indonesia, terutama saudara-saudara penduduk kota Surabaya, kita semuanya telah mengetahui bahwa hari ini tentara Inggris telah menyebarkan pamflet-pamflet yang memberikan suatu ancaman kepada kita semua. Kita diwajibkan untuk dalam waktu yang mereka tentukan menyerahkan senjata-senjata yang telah kita rebut dari tangannya tentara Jepang. Mereka telah minta supaya kita datang pada mereka itu dengan mengangkat tangan. Mereka telah minta supaya kita semua datang pada mereka itu dengan membawa bendera putih, tanda bahwa kita menyerah kepada mereka. Saudara-saudara, di dalam pertempuran-pertempuran yang lampau, kita sekalian telah menunjukkan bahwa rakyat Indonesia di Surabaya, pemuda-pemuda yang berasal dari Maluku, pemuda-pemuda yang berasal dari Sulawesi, pemuda-pemuda yang berasal dari Pulau Bali, pemuda-pemuda yang berasal dari Kalimantan.
I got chills on my arms. Oh my goodness.
Pemuda-pemuda dari seluruh Sumatera, pemuda Aceh, pemuda Tapanuli, dan seluruh pemuda Indonesia yang ada di Surabaya ini, di dalam pasukan-pasukan mereka masing-masing, dengan pasukan-pasukan rakyat yang dibentuk di kampung-kampung, telah menunjukkan satu pertahanan yang tidak bisa dijebol, telah menunjukkan satu kekuatan sehingga mereka itu terjepit di mana-mana. Hanya karena taktik yang licik daripada mereka itu, saudara-saudara, dengan mendatangkan presiden dan pemimpin-pemimpin lainnya ke Surabaya ini, maka kita tunduk untuk memberhentikan pertempuran. Tetapi pada masa itu mereka telah memperkuat diri, dan setelah kuat, sekarang inilah keadaannya. Saudara-saudara, kita semuanya, kita bangsa Indonesia yang ada di Surabaya ini akan menerima tantangan tentara Inggris itu. Dan kalau pimpinan tentara Inggris yang ada di Surabaya ingin mendengarkan jawaban rakyat Indonesia, ingin mendengarkan jawaban seluruh pemuda Indonesia yang ada di Surabaya ini, dengarkanlah ini, tentara Inggris. Ini jawaban kita. Ini jawaban rakyat Surabaya. Ini jawaban pemuda Indonesia kepada kau sekalian. Hei, tentara Inggris, kau mengendaki bahwa kita ini akan membawa bendera putih untuk takluk kepadamu. Kau menyuruh kita mengangkat tangan datang kepadamu. Kau menyuruh kita membawa senjata-senjata yang telah kita rampas dari tentara Jepang untuk diserahkan kepadamu. Tuntutan itu, walaupun kita tahu bahwa kau sekalian akan mengancam kita untuk menggempur kita dengan seluruh kekuatan yang ada, tetapi inilah jawaban kita. Selama banteng-banteng Indonesia masih mempunyai darah merah yang dapat membuat setarik kain putih, merah dan putih, maka selama itu tidak akan kita mau menyerah kepada siapapun juga. Saudara-saudara rakyat Surabaya, siaplah, keadaan genting. Tetapi saya peringatkan sekali lagi, jangan mulai menembak. Baru kalau kita ditembak, maka kita akan ganti menyerang mereka itu. Kita tunjukkan bahwa kita ini adalah benar-benar orang yang ingin merdeka. Dan untuk kita, saudara-saudara, lebih baik kita hancur lebur daripada tidak merdeka. Semua yang kita tetap merdeka atau mati. Dan kita yakin, saudara-saudara, pada akhirnya pastilah kemenangan akan jatuh ke tangan kita. Sebab Allah selalu berada di belah yang benar. Percayalah, saudara-saudara, Tuhan akan melindungi kita sekalian. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Merdeka!
Wow. Do you know what's crazy is if I didn't cover, like, learn about this war for independence, I don't think I would have grasped how important a lot of these words are. And the fact that I know what these events are and see the dynamics of what is being said, right? You really see, as an American, I'm like, I don't just hear the words, I understand them. And that's why, like, I got chills, but also I was just captivated because when you look at the whole picture, every single one of those words means something, either to everyone or to someone at that time. Because there was just so much chaos, so much violence, that in a way, this speech is like a light in the darkness. It's almost that, like, because it touches on so much. And what an amazing speech. Amazing speech. I'm lost for words. Kind of a little emotional. Like, I'm not Indonesian myself, but seeing, like, we're literally learning about this stuff, and I guess it just gives a different perspective, right? On top of already an incredible story towards independence. And Bung Tomo's speech was played during the battle through RRI and Radio Revolutionnaire to increase the fighting spirit of the people of Surabaya, which we also learned that the Japanese allowed the Indonesian people to set up radios and essentially infrastructure to, and like media and local press and stuff, which is really, really, really interesting. Yep. And I think this is one of the most interesting things about the Indonesian people, um, is when it came to fighting for independence, how smart everyone was in understanding that we need to get the world to see the British, to see the Dutch and these colonizers for how evil they are, because they understood, you guys understood that there was a shift away from that. So it was like this idea of, you guys knew what was going on in the world, that the world was changing and moving away from colonization. And so when this was happening, you're like, we need to keep these people accountable. Nowadays, there's countries that go through these movements, but they're not hyper aware of any of it. And for that to happen back then is incredible, because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have all the things that we have available to us to communicate. So the fact that you were able to do that back then shows how, not just how much you wanted the freedom, but how smart you were in approaching it. And one of the things about this, in learning about this, that I found, and I'm always shocked every time it happens, was not just the British, but the Dutch or the Netherlands. Every time they have an opportunity to turn the temperature down, they never take it. They always turn the temperature up and escalate the violence, which in no way is practical. Like, even if you try to look at it from their perspective, makes no sense. They just keep choosing more and more and more and more violence every time they get that. And we're not done with the series of the War for Independence. So if you want to subscribe and see, essentially, I think the final episode's coming up. So, but the thing is, it's like you went through a World War II. Europeans did, as well as Americans, to stop this specific kind of escalation of violence, just for the Europeans, British and the Dutch, to just straight up, right after being essentially freed from that violence, to start committing that violence and then escalating it even more. And I wish we as Americans learned more, not just about Southeast Asia or Indonesia, but kind of where these Europeans really, really didn't live up to the standards that we all agreed to. It feels like, as an American, we always get told, well, we always do something wrong. We're always the bad guy, blah, 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 blah. So we're used to it. But if we learned about the Dutch and the British and some of the things that they were doing, I think it's important to recognize those impacts, because then we can understand the regions that they hurt. Does that make sense? Like, as an American, I'm better understanding the dynamic between Indonesia and America through the history. But now I also understand why Southeast Asia in general is so distrusting of Europe. And so to me, it's like, okay, now I have a sense of really understanding what their words mean more than just what's being said. Does that make sense? And I think that's how the world heals, is really understanding the other person's perspective. And I think this speech, again, is an incredible speech, because it touches on everything in its own way that makes it timeless. Incredible. This is, obviously the violence isn't, but Indonesia has such a very beautiful and unique, interesting, yet complex history that I wish the world knew more about. You know what's crazy? After watching this and kind of already talking about some of the history, I remember when I first saw this happen in the last video, or not the last video, but the video that we watched it in, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to escalate things." But in a weird way, these two generals or commanders dying was like a way to put the world put a spot, like the world now had to pay attention. Does that make sense? Like, it led to a short-term negative because now Europeans were starting to get more violent. They're going to get more violent. But it made the world pay attention because generals or commanders don't just die usually in battle. So it's like, wait a minute, you just lost two generals, two commanders? Well, now we got to pay attention to what's going on over here. Why are they dying? And then you start looking, oh wow, looks like the British and the Dutch are basically they're colonizing again. So at the time, I thought it was a negative because it was like it's going to lead to more violence towards Indonesians, but in a weird way, it also was like there was like a sliver of good. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm really starting to reflect on some of the things that we've talked about, and I think this is one of those key moments where it might seem bad at the time, but in a weird way, it did actually, in the long term, help Indonesia. Wow. Wow. Is that monument still there? I would love when I come to Indonesia to come see that. Wow. Which is, yeah, they did. That's a good point. That's a good point. I remember we talked about this. The fact that the Dutch now started implementing diplomacy because they just could not win physically, like through just military strength.
Dag aanwezigen, ik open deze vergadering van de rondetafelconferentie.
Na het openingswoord volgt de behandeling van de agenda, waarbij de secretaris-generaal de heer Prinsen onder andere de stukken voorleest van de op de conferentie bereikte akkoorden.
In de periode voor de conferentie waren in delen van Indonesië deelstaten opgericht. Dit om de macht van Sukarno's, Republiek Indonesia, te beperken. Voor Nederland was het een voorwaarde voor het verlenen van onafhankelijkheid. Voor de Indonesische onderhandelaars een tactische concessie die spoedig na de soevereiniteitsoverdracht ongedaan werd gemaakt.
Yeah, I got a little tear in my eye. All right, it's a good video and a good speech. I'm very grateful to have learned about, the independent, the war for, not just the war for independence, but Indonesia in general. I think, you hear about things in history that seems so terrible or even good, right? But they always consistently always hear or feel like it all happened long ago. It all happened far away. But what I'm learning about Indonesian history through the war for independence, a lot of this is fairly recent, right? All the good and all the bad. It wasn't 100 years ago, 200 years ago. There's still some people, who can still remember fighting. Maybe they're obviously a bit older, but this happened. There's still some impact that happened in the 80s, the 90s, right? The fact that the Dutch only recognized some of these things in the 2000s. So, or is it 2020? So not even 5 years ago. And I think this story and this history is a great reminder that regardless of where we are in the world, things are always changing and things are always happening, and it's always good to try to learn. Like, I'm not here ever to speak on behalf of the Indonesian people. I'm just here to learn. And I guess learning and growing is such a pivotal thing because you never know what you're going to miss out on. And I think this beautiful story, the beautiful history, the beautiful struggle um, of Indonesian people, but also their fierce spirit to want something so bad that they're willing to do whatever it takes, um, is something I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't ever decide to say, you know what, I'm going to learn. So you're probably watching this on Heroes Day, and so I want to wish you all well, safe, and I wish I could give you all a hug, but my heart goes out to everybody, and um, yeah, in Indonesia, I don't really know how to say it, but I just want to wish you guys a good Heroes Day, and um, I love you guys, and I'll check you on the next one. Bye bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.